Soma was a young orphan living with his grandfather after the death of his family. One day his grandfather sat beside him and said, "My son, since your father and mother passed away, you have been living with me. Believe me, my boy, you have become my entire family. I know that my days in this world are few, and I hope you will not continue your life alone as I did. Try to build your own family, Soma, for being surrounded by those you love and those who love you is worth more than the world and all that is in it." Soma listened to his grandfather's words and was deeply moved. Yet, after some time, he lost his grandfather as well. He began visiting his grave regularly, drowning in a suffocating loneliness he could not overcome. Meanwhile, in another world, within one of the kingdoms, grave troubles threatened its survival. Thus, the people of the kingdom decided to summon a hero to save them. The kingdom's sorcerers began the summoning ritual, and a tremendous surge of energy engulfed the land, spreading the seal of summoning across the entire realm. Back to Soma, he was calmly studying in the library when, suddenly, a temporal portal opened beneath his feet. In an instant, he was drawn into another world. He found himself soaring through the sky, screaming, "What madness is this? What is happening to me?" The seal pulled him forcefully until he landed safely at the site of the summoning. Soma opened his eyes in shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Soldiers immediately escorted him to the royal hall. There, he witnessed awe-inspiring sights beyond imagination. Suddenly, the king rose from his throne and declared, "Thank you, Soma, for answering our call for aid and coming to save us." Soma snapped angrily, "Are you insane? What call? What aid? How did I even end up here?" The king was taken aback by his words but tried to calm him. "Please, be patient. I will explain everything." The king then began his tale. In the continent of land, various races, humans, dwarves, elves, and even dragons, once lived in perfect harmony. But a great calamity struck. Portals began appearing out of nothingness, unleashing countless monsters. These creatures swept across the continent, ravaging its lands. Several kingdoms united to resist them, but they failed to withstand their might. In the chaos, the kingdoms exhausted all their resources. The monsters then seized 1/3 of the continent and established a vast realm they called the Demon Lord's Kingdom. Since then, endless wars have raged between the Demon Lord's Kingdom and the other realms. Ruin has spread everywhere, for the demons seek destruction without reason. Soma asked, "And what exactly do you expect from me in all this disaster? Am I supposed to solve your problems?" The king's deputy intervened. "Listen, Soma, I will tell you the truth. There is a kingdom called Geirin, responsible for waging war against the demon realm. It is a powerful kingdom, bearing the heaviest burden of the battle. They receive support from other nations that do not fight directly, but this aid has strained the entire continent's economy." Soma scoffed. "So why don't you just pay them? What does this have to do with me?" The deputy replied, "Unfortunately, our economy has collapsed completely. The kingdom also suffers from severe food shortages. We can neither fight nor pay. Thus, we were left with only one option recorded in our ancient texts, summoning a hero and sending him to the kingdom of Geirin." Soma stood stunned. "And what will happen to me if I go there?" The king answered, "That lies in the hands of fate, my son. May God's mercy protect you." Soma realized he was in grave danger. He thought of escaping, but feared being captured and forced into Geirin. Suddenly an idea struck him. He asked, "If you send me to Geirin, will they stop demanding money from you?" The deputy said, "Of course they will continue asking for support as long as the war rages." Soma pressed further. "So what then? Will you keep summoning heroes every time and sending them there?" The deputy replied, "The last time we summoned a hero was 500 years ago, but now we have no other choice." Soma seized the moment. "You fools, how can you throw away such an opportunity so carelessly? The solution is not to send heroes to die. It is to build true strength. We must restore the kingdom's economy, reclaim our resources, and form a powerful army capable of defending our land. Heroes like me can lay the foundations for this. The answer lies with me." In truth, Soma spoke this way merely to protect himself, fearing they would send him to Geirin to fight the demons. Later, Soma sat with his hand resting on his cheek, muttering to himself, "Oh Lord, save me from this disaster I've been dragged into." Suddenly he found the king, the queen, and the deputy sitting with him. Soma requested that they tell him everything about the kingdom in detail. Indeed, they held a meeting that lasted 3 whole days. During this time, Soma learned every detail concerning the realm, and he began devising brilliant plans to resolve its crises. We go to him and find Soma utterly exhausted, his state pitiful, attending a meeting inside the royal hall. And there, the king shocks everyone by declaring that he will abdicate the throne of the kingdom in favor of Suma, yes, making him the new king of this land. At that moment, Suma is struck with disbelief, stunned beyond measure, not knowing what to do, and to heighten the astonishment, the king announces as well the engagement of Suma to his daughter Lacia. Everyone falls into a state of total shock. The news spreads spreads swiftly across the entire kingdom, and no one can comprehend what is happening. On the other side, we see a girl galloping swiftly on her horse until she reaches the royal palace. She pushes open the doors and enters upon her parents, and this girl is none other than Lycia herself, the very fiancée of Suma now, my friend. She says to her father, I heard that the throne has been taken from you, so I came here to restore it to you once more. But the king answers her saying, there is no such thing, my daughter. Calm yourself. I willingly abdicated the throne to Suma, for he is truly exceptional, far more suited than I am to rule the kingdom, intelligent and diligent. And remind yourself also that you are now betrothed to him. She responds angrily, how could you do this without even asking for my opinion? And she grows furious. Then she storms off to see Suma, and when she opens the door, she is struck by the sight of a handsome young man before her, yet clearly worn down from endless labor, visibly fatigued. He looks at her and says, you there, can you read or not? She snaps back, yes, I am educated. I can read and calculate as well. He says to her, good, then come and help me with this work. Lycia flares up saying, have you lost your mind? I am Lycia, daughter of the king, or rather, daughter of the former king. And Suma replies mockingly, honestly, I thought you were one of the maids of the palace with the clothes you are wearing. Then he introduces himself, I am now the king, so muster your strength, put your hand with mine, and let us finish this work together. She exclaims in astonishment, how insolent you are. After seizing the throne, now you want to put me to work alongside you? But Suma answers, by God, daughter of the people, I myself do not even know how this happened. I merely proposed some economic solutions before your father, and at most I imagined he might appoint me Minister of Finance or something of the sort. But suddenly I found him abdicating the throne and naming me king of the realm. I was as shocked as you are. When Lycia hears this, she apologizes, saying, I thought you were a fraud who stole the crown from my father, but it was my father who erred and yielded it to you. And Suma replies, as for the throne, I will strive to repair the kingdom's condition, and afterward I shall relinquish it again. As for our engagement, you have the right to dissolve it right now if you wish. Lycia bursts out, what do you mean? Break off the engagement? Am I not good enough for you? Then she asks with concern, and where will you get the money to restore the kingdom? Do you think we have endless treasure? We barely possess anything, my friend. Suma answers, do not worry about the money, I have already arranged it. And here we learn that Suma began selling the royal jewels of the kingdom to use the funds in repairing and developing the land. Lycia is shocked and says, what? You are selling the treasures of the kingdom to get money? How could you do such a thing? But he replies, first of all, these treasures belong to the people, and it is only just that they should benefit from them instead of being hoarded by the royal family alone. And do not worry, for I divided the treasures of the kingdom into 3 categories, the first being valuable treasures tied to the kingdom's heritage, the second being treasures of no worth with no historical value, and the third being magical artifacts and ancient weapons. It was only the second category that I sold, which had no value at all, yet I gathered vast sums from it. Then Lycia asks him, and did you send any money to the kingdom of Gairan? He tells her, no, for they will take what is due to them at the last deadline regardless. What matters to me now is to restore the kingdom and save it from poverty. And Suma was truly brilliant, for he was also thinking of building a powerful army capable of protecting the kingdom from any danger. And it seemed that Lycia began to admire his way of thinking. And so we learn that this world is filled with dragons and legendary creatures, alongside the presence of magical powers throughout the kingdom. We return to Suma and see a man telling him that he must undergo a magical test, for the legends say that the hero possesses a tremendous magical power, and indeed he undergoes the test, and his capacity for magic use is inscribed, leaving him utterly shocked, not knowing how to react. Soon after, Lycia comes to visit him, enters his chamber, and is astonished to find that Suma has chosen 6 individuals to aid him in managing the affairs of the kingdom. He had even employed his magic to animate feathers, placing in each one a consciousness of its own, capable of completing tasks independently. Lycia is struck with awe at what she sees, and she realizes that he appointed these people to trace where exactly the kingdom's funds are going, and whether some officials are stealing them. And he says to himself, if I discover who is stealing the wealth of the people, I shall not spare him. I shall confiscate all his possessions. After some time passes, Suma remains in his place, working relentlessly on the duties of the kingdom, but exhaustion weighs heavily upon him. He raises his eyes slightly and sees that everyone around him has fallen asleep, even Lycia, whom we find eating rice pudding beside the girl Piero before she too drifts off. Suma checks on her gently, and suddenly she wakes startled and says, I fell asleep against my will. He replies with a smile, it is fine. You actually look beautiful when you are asleep. Lycia blushes deeply, her face reddening, unable to reply. Then Suma asks her to come out for a short stroll, as he wishes to speak with her about something important. And indeed they ride the horse together, but Suma is clearly terrified of it. So Lycia teases him, "What weakness? You are supposed to be the man, so pull yourself together and ride in my place." He answers, "I only know how to ride motorcycles, and not just that, I can even perform stunts with them." Lycia stares at him in disbelief, then asks about his family in his own world. He tells her that he is rootless, that he lived with his grandfather during the past years, but his grandfather has since passed away, and from that moment, he has lived alone. Lycia feels sorrow for him and says, "Forgive me for asking, I did not know that your grandfather had died recently." The young man said to her, "Do not worry, for he was already an old man, and he had lived his life to the fullest, so do not grieve over him." Then Suma took Lycia and led her to a vast field planted with cotton in large quantities. He said to her, "I want you to focus on my words and understand them well. The land before you is covered with a crop that is not fit for consumption, and it is one of the main reasons behind the malnutrition afflicting the kingdom. This plant is called the Sajari plant." He continued, "Listen carefully. Before the demons invaded the northern continent, the northern nations were the ones responsible for cultivating cotton. But because of those invasions, cotton production decreased greatly. For that reason, some kingdoms turned to growing it for the sake of profit and abandoned the food crops they had always relied upon. As a result, famine struck the entire kingdom, for there was no food left. At first, the kingdom sold cotton and imported food, since its price was exceedingly high. But as time passed, cotton prices collapsed as every kingdom began growing it. Thus, our kingdom could neither sell its cotton nor import food. That is how the famine came to be." Lycia was deeply moved upon hearing this and said sorrowfully, "How did we not notice this?" Suma replied, "Never mind that. What matters now is to find a solution to this crisis. There are many things you must learn, for the day will come when I depart from here, and before I go, I want to be assured that the kingdom will be safe in your hands." Lycia was touched even more by his words, and she did not want him to leave. After a short while they returned to the royal palace and sat together at the dining table. There Suma shared his ideas with Lycia regarding agricultural crops, and together they began drafting a plan to achieve self-sufficiency. At that moment, Arx, the captain of the royal guard, joined them, greeted them, and sat to converse. He asked Suma whether he faced difficulties in governance, or if there was anything in which he could assist. Suma said, "To begin with, the greatest problem I face lies with the old officials, with the exception of the king's deputy. He is a blessed man whose presence is invaluable. As for the rest, they are failures beyond description, and we must seek out others who are truly trustworthy. Had they been successful, the kingdom would not have reached the brink of collapse." After that, Suma made a request to Lycia that seemed unusual. He said to her, "I heard that you possess something akin to a live broadcast." She replied, "Indeed." Thus we came to know that the kingdom possessed a kind of magical stones that could transmit live images from the royal palace to every corner of the realm. Suma then asked Lycia to help him use this broadcast, for he needed to speak directly to the people. He intended to recruit individuals from among the populace for very special tasks, yet not based on their education as the kingdom had always done, but rather on their talent. Then he began addressing the people of the kingdom, saying, "I am in need of those who truly love their homeland. Whatever your talent may be, the kingdom needs you. There is no difference between rich and poor, for it is your talent alone that shall determine your destiny. The kingdom is enduring a time of great hardship, and I need your help to overcome this trial. The people of this kingdom deserve a better life, and our children deserve that we toil for their sake." He continued to inspire them. "Never think that your talent is worthless, for this is my decision. I shall hold many competitions, and those most gifted shall receive vast financial rewards. If you believe you are talented, then come to me at the palace where I shall be waiting for you. And let me remind you once more, it does not matter whether you are rich or poor, man or woman. What matters is that you excel in your craft so that you may serve the kingdom." The people responded to his words with extraordinary enthusiasm, and when the broadcast ended, Suma appeared greatly optimistic. Indeed, many talented individuals decided to head to the royal palace to present their skills before the new king. We are then taken back to an earlier moment, when Suma was speaking to Lycia in the cotton field, particularly when he told her, "You must learn everything so that when I depart, I may rest assured the kingdom will prosper under your rule." Suddenly, Lycia awoke from her sleep, deeply shaken by his words, fearful that her fiancé might leave her. Then came a knock at the door. A palace maid entered and informed her that on this very day, Suma would be honoring those who succeeded in the examination before the entire kingdom, and that Lycia's presence was essential. At once, she prepared herself to attend the ceremony. We moved to the royal hall, where Suma sat upon the throne, with the event being broadcast live. The ceremony was truly majestic. The honor was to be bestowed upon the 5 most talented individuals in the kingdom. 4 of them bowed their heads respectfully before the king, but the 5th refused. The guards ordered her to show respect to the king as the others had, but she flatly refused and declared, "It is not the way of the warriors of my tribe to bow to anyone, no matter his station, save only the chief of the tribe." The The captain of the guard grew angry and said, "Do you even realize what you are saying, girl?" But Suma intervened and asked everyone to feel at ease, whereupon they all adjusted their posture. It was then revealed that each of those honored possessed a distinct talent. They began with a girl named Ashia, who belonged to the Dark Elves, her homeland being the sacred forest. To everyone's astonishment, Suma displayed knowledge of everything concerning the Dark Elves through his study of books. It became clear that Ashia was the most gifted warrior in the entire kingdom. Suma wished to bestow upon her a great reward, but she refused, and instead made a request. She said, "My homeland, the sacred forest, has suffered a sudden devastation. The plants and trees no longer grow, which places my tribe in grave peril. Therefore, I ask you to save us and tell us the solution." He paused for a moment, thinking, then asked her, "When was the last time you pruned the trees?" Ashia looked at him in surprise and replied, "And what does pruning even mean?" He smiled and said, "Now I understand the problem." He then began to explain. When you prune the large trees, sunlight reaches the smaller ones, and they grow properly. But because the branches of the larger trees intertwine, the smaller trees are deprived of sunlight. Therefore, the branches of the larger trees must be cut from time to time so that sunlight can reach the smaller plants in the soil, allowing them to grow healthily. And this is the main reason behind the destruction of the sacred forest. When Ashia heard this, she believed him wholeheartedly, bowed to him in respect, and asked him to accompany her to the sacred forest to teach her tribe how to prune, so that the forest could be saved as quickly as possible. Then we moved on to the second gifted one, named Jean, the most beautiful girl in the entire kingdom, whose gift was singing, with a voice so melodious and pure. At that moment, Soma asked her to sing a song from his own world. He took out his phone, and no one in the hall even knew what that device was. Jean focused on the song she heard from him, then began to sing it with great mastery. Her performance was astonishing, filling everyone with joy and amazement, and they applauded her enthusiastically. The atmosphere was filled with delight and wonder. Then we came to the third talent, whose name was Shan. He stood tall for a moment, but suddenly collapsed to the ground. That was when we learned that his gift was eating. Yes, as you heard, my friend. The young man had an insatiable appetite, as if he could devour the entire kingdom. When Soma learned of his talent, he rushed to him and shook his hand, saying, "Thank you very much for coming. You arrived at just the right time, for I truly need your gift." Shan was deeply moved and began to cry, saying, "I was always bullied, to the point that I fell into depression and even lost 4 kilograms of weight." Soma smiled at him and encouraged him, saying, "Believe me, Shan, you will be the reason the entire kingdom is saved." And although there was some jest about imprisoning him to save food for the people, the true purpose was far greater. Soma wanted to show everyone that a young man like Shan could reach the king through his gift, inspiring the rest of the people to believe in their own talents and trust in themselves. This was truly something magnificent. Then we reached the fourth talent, named Akra. This young man was a true genius in every sense of the word, blessed with a steel-like memory and an exceptional ability to think. When he appeared before the king, we learned that he was passionate about reading in every field, with vast knowledge of science, politics, and history, as well as deep expertise in military tactics, as though he were a minister of defense by himself. Soma offered him the position of overseeing the royal library so he could access the rarest of books, but Akra confidently replied, "That is wonderful, but allow me to ask for something else. I wish to use my knowledge to support your global standing, and to place my expertise in every science and field at your disposal. In other words, to become the king's advisor." Soma was astonished by his boldness and said, "If you truly believe yourself worthy of such trust, then I shall give you the chance." Akra answered with a sharp smile, "A man like you would never grant me such a chance unless you were certain that I was capable of it." Soma burst out laughing and said, "Enough, Akra, you will expose us in front of everyone. Come to my office after the banquet, and we shall continue this conversation in private." From that moment, we understood that Akra would become the king's right hand in the future, with the title of the Black Prime Minister. Finally, we arrived at the last talent of the group, a girl named Tomi, belonging to the clan of the Mystic Wolves. She possessed a truly dangerous gift. She could speak to birds and animals. Through his magic and the knowledge he found in books, Soma learned that the origin of her clan was from beyond the kingdom's borders, and that Tomi was a refugee who had come here. Tomi wanted to tell him a grave secret, but she was tense and very afraid. Soma approached her gently and said, "Come now, young lady, say whatever you wish. No one is listening." At that, Tomi began to speak and revealed to him a most dangerous secret. Soma struggled to maintain his composure and asked her, "Does anyone else know of this secret?" She replied, "No, only my mother knew of it." Soma then sat upon his chair, changing the tone of his voice, and said to her in front of everyone, "Your request is denied." Then he whispered, "But I promise I shall try to help you." He then ordered his deputy, "Bring Tomi to my office after the banquet." He thanked the group for their presence, and they saluted him before the celebration came to an end. After the banquet was over, Tomi sat in the royal office while Soma stood with his aides and asked them, "Did any of you hear what Tomi told me?" They replied, "No." Her voice was not audible at all. Soma then said, reassuring himself, good. Then no one heard anything. Through the broadcast of the magic stones, Lisha said to him, it seems the matter has grown serious, Soma. Would you care to explain the whole story to us? At that moment, he began to explain, saying, you of course know that Tomi can speak with animals. They answered, yes, we know that. Then he shocked them by saying, but Tomi can also speak with demons. She understands their language, and they understand hers as though she were one of their own kind. Shock spread through the place and they cried out, that is impossible. No one can understand the language of demons, nor do they understand the languages of the other races in this world. At that point, Tomi began recounting what had happened and said, I happened to encounter a demon deep in the forest, and to my surprise, I understood his words, and he too was astonished that he could understand mine. We began speaking together and he told me, flee this place at once before someone else arrives. Soma interrupted them, saying, the ability to communicate with demons could change the balance of the entire war. Lisha said to him, you mean you intend to negotiate with the demons then? He answered, yes. But at present, all the nations have united to confront the demons, and they have agreed that the demon kingdom is an enemy that must be destroyed. If this secret were to be revealed, some might exploit it to side with the demons and cause even greater ruin to the lands. Therefore, this matter must remain between us, known to no one else. At that, Tomi sat beside Lisha, looking deeply troubled, while Soma tried to reassure them, saying, we must protect Tomi by any means. He then asked the captain of the guard to personally take on this duty, but his deputy refused, saying, if we do that, suspicion will only grow around her. He then suggested another idea. It would be better if she were to reside in the royal palace, as though the palace had adopted her. Lisha was overjoyed at the idea, and Soma approved of it as well. Yet Tomi had another opinion, saying, I have a family, and it is impossible for me to abandon them and live here alone. Soma replied, whether it be you, your family, or any of your relatives, you are all welcome in the royal palace at any time. He then asked his deputy to find suitable work for Tomi so that no suspicions would arise. The deputy said to him, since she can communicate with animals, what do you think of letting her oversee the royal stables? Soma agreed immediately, and Tomi was overjoyed. Afterwards, Soma sat with Lisha conversing, when suddenly a maid entered and told him that Shan was waiting outside. As soon as Soma heard this, he took Lisha and hurried to meet him. After greeting him, we learned that Soma had sent him on an important mission that would benefit the entire kingdom. A mission to collect certain foods from across the realm. Lisha could not comprehend it and exclaimed in astonishment, all this commotion over mere food? You are busying yourselves with trivial matters. Suddenly, a live broadcast appeared for the people, and we saw John and Shan standing together as though presenting a show before the public. Then Soma joined them, announcing to the people that this program would introduce foods unknown to anyone in the kingdom. Soma prepared a grand table to display the dishes. Then his team would arrive to taste them and declare their opinions before everyone, so that the people might hear their judgments of these new foods. Soma began with the first item. When Shan entered carrying an octopus, disgust filled the place, but Soma took the octopus and prepared it to make a dish of sushi. When the time came to taste it, the flavor astonished them all, to the point that they admired it greatly and were amazed that such delicious food could exist. The people followed the broadcast and said, we must try eating octopus as well, for we used to discard it before. The second item was a type of plant found in the forest. As usual, Soma taught them the method of preparation and began cutting it. Then the team devoured it eagerly, especially Ashia, who loved this variety so much that even her tribe saw her through the broadcast savoring the food, and it became a scandalous disgrace for her. As for the third and final item, it was a type of creature from this world known as the slime. The question was, how could such a thing even be eaten? It was like a balloon filled with water, and if cut, the water would spill to the ground and vanish at once. But Shan had another opinion, for he knew well how this creature was cooked. At first, he struck the slime with a blow neither too strong nor too weak, and suddenly its core vanished, leaving it ready for cooking. With time, the liquid inside transformed into a pliable substance that could be cut and eaten with ease. Master Shan began cooking the gelatin and prepared it, and the time for tasting had come. Everyone seemed a little hesitant, until he encouraged them, saying, this dish resembles something called indomie in my world. Of course, the team could hardly believe their ears when they heard those words, and suddenly Suma found himself cornered, as they said to him, why don't you taste it first, and tell us what you think? Bon appétit, your majesty. Suma took a plate, saying, I brought this upon myself. Then he began eating before them, and the moment he tasted it, he was greatly impressed and continued eating eagerly. His companions and the team were astonished to see him eat with such passion, and they rushed to their plates, devouring the food with greed and delight. The scene almost suggested that they were ready to abandon the art of combat to rival Yan in the art of eating. And thus, my friend, the royal food program ended for the day, while the people were filled with joy and interaction to the highest degree. A week later, Suma was seated in his office when the maid entered, informing him that the deputy wished to meet him and was waiting in the royal hall. Suma was puzzled and rose to see what was happening, only to find the deputy and Akira there. The deputy then told him that he wished to resign from his post. Suma asked, "Why would you want to do that?" The deputy replied, "The former ruler abdicated the throne to you when he saw you more worthy of it than himself. Therefore, I now relinquish my position as deputy, because I see you far superior to me in this role, and I hope you accept my resignation." Suma agreed with his words but added, "You are still in your post until you submit your resignation formally." The man replied, "Very well." Then Akira spoke, saying, "Since I am your future deputy, believe me, you must take a break today and clear your mind. Since you arrived here, you have done nothing but work. And the real reason I say this is because a king must take at least a day off from time to time, so that anyone under his authority may also take leave whenever they need to. This way, they will work with both efficiency and ease." Indeed, Suma accepted the advice and went to find Licia training with Aisha in martial arts and dueling. Suma was astonished to see them using magic in their combat, and he realized how powerful they were, that if their training continued for much longer, they might destroy the place entirely. At that moment, Suma called to them, and as they sat together he told them that they would disguise themselves and go on a tour throughout the kingdom for relaxation. And so, they disguised themselves as students of the military academy and took a carriage that carried them to one of the kingdom's cities. There, Suma said, "From now until our return, call me only by my name. No king, no prince. No one should sense our presence." Aisha then laughed, saying, "Shame on you, my friend. From now on, I shall keep calling you the ruler of the kingdom, but I will not say king so that no one suspects." Suma retorted in frustration, "You fool, I feel as though I am speaking to a mindless creature. Focus with me a little." They continued their path, strolling through the town for a while. After some time, Aisha felt hungry, so Suma suggested that they dine at Jean's restaurant. It turned out that Jean had opened a restaurant nearby. Indeed, they went there, and as soon as they entered, Jean greeted them joyfully. Suma quickly said to her, "Do you remember me or not? I am the silk merchant from the kingdom of Chino. I hope you still remember me." At that moment, Jean understood his intent and smiled, replying, "Of course I remember you. How have you been?" Of course she did not tease him about his mother, but the meaning was clear. Then they sat at one of the tables to have lunch, and they ordered the gelatin. We noticed Jean speaking to Suma with great kindness, and Suma was quite taken with her. But suddenly Licia interrupted, saying, "Control yourself, man, before I take matters into my own hands." Suma then looked toward Aisha, finding her completely immersed in the food, and he teased, "It seems you wish to rival Shan in his talent for eating." Suddenly their attention was drawn to a girl seated at one of the tables in the restaurant with someone sitting beside her. Then the girl began raising her voice in a way no one understood, and to grasp what comes next, you must focus carefully. This is the Kingdom of Frieden, the kingdom now ruled by Suma. Like any kingdom, it possesses a military force to protect it. This is Lise, commander of the land forces, numbering about 40,000 soldiers. This is Excel, commander of the naval forces, numbering over 10,000 soldiers. And finally, this is Castor, commander of the aerial forces, numbering about 1,000 soldiers. It is said that the strength of a single dragon knight equals that of 1,000 human soldiers. In addition, there are special forces assigned to protect the king and the high officials, their number unknown. It is said that the kingdom was founded long ago after an alliance of different races, humans, beasts, elves, and half-dragons. Yet it was humans who were chosen as rulers of the kingdom, for they were the most numerous at the time, while the army commanders were chosen from the different races. And I believe this explanation is sufficient for now. Let us continue the tale. We return once again to the restaurant, where the young woman says, "Do not dare to do that, Halbert." At first, he mistakes her for one of the mystic wolves like Tomo, but they clarify that she belongs to the race of foxes, not wolves. As for Licia, she already knew this young man well. She tells Suma that Halbert is from a prestigious family, once a knight at the Magic Academy, and later a soldier in the army. Their conversation continues until it becomes clear that Halbert intends to stir chaos within the kingdom, desiring to join Gaius Amadonia's general, Lys, commander of the infantry, and to support him in a coup against the new king. Suma, however, was already in conflict with Lice, and there was no trust whatsoever between them. Meanwhile, the young woman tries to dissuade Halbert, reminding him that the kingdom is going through extremely dire circumstances, and that any internal strife now could bring about its collapse, perhaps even opening the door to invasion by enemies. The scene then shifts to a flashback. We find Suma sitting with Akira, studying the borders of the kingdom. Akira explains to Suma who their enemies and allies truly are. To begin with, all the nations bordering our kingdom are neither our allies nor our enemies, save for the kingdom of Andoni. That kingdom in particular constantly seeks to sow discord between the new king and his general. They repeatedly demand that we send reinforcements to the kingdom of Fredonia, but in truth, those reinforcements are unnecessary, my friend. The soldiers they would send, under the guise of reinforcements, would begin occupying our cities from within. At the same time, they try to provoke discord between the king and his general, and all the while they are waiting for the chance to strike us from without. To put it plainly, that kingdom is far more dangerous than the demon kingdom itself. The scene then shifts back to the present. Kaede is trying to stop Halbert from opposing the king when suddenly someone interrupts. She lifts her eyes and sees Suma before her. The girl freezes in place, almost fainting from shock. Suma then leads them into a private chamber while Halbert still has not realized who he is. Kaede grows anxious, fearing that the king overheard her earlier words with Halbert, but Suma reassures her. Do not worry, nothing will happen. Suddenly Halbert shouts angrily at Suma, "And who are you to interfere between us?" As he raises his voice further, Aisha seizes him by the collar, lifting him into the air and putting him in his place. Suma smiles and says, "Leave him, my lady. He is no match for you. You are harsher than I expected." Halbert then stares more closely at Suma's face, only to realize in shock that the man before him is the king himself. Terror grips him so strongly that he nearly loses all composure. But Suma surprises him with a question. "Why do you wish to join Lise? Why seek to deepen the rift between us?" And before Halbert can speak a word, Suma continues, "For the record, if you choose to do that, I will not be angered. Just as a ruler has the right to choose his officers, so too do officers have the right to choose whom they serve." It is revealed then that Kaede and Halbert had been childhood friends. Suma addresses him again. "Listen, Halbert, you must understand. Kaede is a mage in the special forces responsible for protecting the royal palace. Should you join the opposition, the day will come when you must face her, and if you do not strike her down yourself, one of your companions surely will. Think carefully, Halbert, and do not follow the herd blindly." Suma's words strike deeply, and Halbert appears moved, even convinced. Shortly after, we find Suma once again with Licia, where his magical ability of telekinesis has advanced remarkably. A maid then enters, announcing that the head of House Magna, Halbert's father, awaits outside with Kaede and his son. When Suma steps out, the three greet him. He notices at once that Halbert has been strictly disciplined, his demeanor subdued. It is then revealed that his father has come to apologize to the king and to ask forgiveness for his son's reckless words. Suma replies with a smile, "Do not trouble yourself. I am not angry in the least. Besides, it seems you have punished your son enough." Yet the father responds, "Punishment? That was nothing. When we return home, I will discipline him even further." The poor young man finds himself in a most unfortunate position indeed. In the end, Suma smiles again and says, "Calm yourself. What is past, and nothing has happened." He then turns to Kaede. "You are hereby promoted to the rank of officer in the royal palace." Overjoyed, she bows and thanks him warmly. Suma then looks to Halbert and says, "You too shall accompany Kaede, and I want you to serve as her assistant." Halbert's face lights up with happiness, filled with gratitude to the king. But at that very moment, Halbert's father addresses Suma gravely. "There is a secret of utmost importance that you must know, yet I must speak it to you alone, for it is far too dangerous to be spoken openly." And indeed, the royal hall emptied completely, and Suma was struck with shock upon hearing that secret. He sat in his place, lost in thought, murmuring to himself, "It seems there is something far greater behind this, my friend. But first, you must know something of utmost importance. In this world, magic is divided into 6 elements: fire, water, earth, wind, light, and lastly, the magic of darkness. The first 4 elements are usually employed in battle, with each possessing its own unique attacks and distinctive power. As for the magic of light, it is used in healing and recovery. Yet the true calamity lies within dark magic, for it is a deadly force in every sense of the word, incomparable to any other kind of magic mentioned. It is also known that one can channel their magical power into the weapons they wield, as happened with Licia and Aisha during their training. A soldier standing in the army depends upon the type of magic they command. Fire magic belongs to the ground forces, wind magic to the aerial forces, water magic to the naval forces, and earth magic is reserved for the special forces directly under the king's command. As for the magic Suma wields, It belongs to the category of black magic. And so, he resolved to conduct an experiment that was reckless to say the least. He focused intently on the puppet he was manipulating, for he had used it in a secret experiment known to no one. He then sent it to join an adventurer's party, posing as a human being. Indeed, it became a companion to the team. Though they found their new comrade's behavior strange, they entrusted it with a mission to explore tunnels lying beneath the city. Thus, the adventure began. Suddenly, a colossal serpent appeared before them. As the team's leader was about to draw his sword, the puppet hurled itself upon the serpent with foolish recklessness, slaying it in a mere instant. Nor did it stop there. It began dissecting every monster it encountered, leaving no chance for the rest of the team to fight. On the contrary, it carried out the task and more. They continued deeper into the tunnel when one of the girls sensed something most unusual and warned the team. Moments later, disaster struck. A massive, terrifying creature emerged before them, a salamander. This kind of beast possessed lethal acid, and ordinary weapons were useless against it. To fight it would mean being torn to shreds. The sorceress among them attempted to attack, but her companion shouted, "Toxie, you are using fire magic and the salamander is utterly immune to fire. There is but one option before us in the face of this calamity. Running is half of courage." The team bolted at once with all their might, yet the unexpected happened. The puppet stumbled and fell to the ground. The others looked back at it, then resolved to save it. They hurled a flash bomb that blinded the monster, and one of the girls rushed to help her fallen comrade. But just as the beast unleashed its acidic fluid upon her, the puppet shielded her with its own body, taking the full brunt of the attack. Afterwards, it carried the girl, and together the party fled until they emerged from the tunnel safely. We then returned to Suma, who held the puppet in his hands, examining it. At that moment, Licia entered and exclaimed in astonishment, "What are you doing? Wasn't this puppet smaller, or am I mistaken?" He answered her, "Yes, it was smaller, but I asked one of the craftsmen to create another one with these specifications." To this she asked, "Could this be the mysterious adventurer the kingdom speaks of?" He replied, "Exactly. I am merely conducting an experiment. I shall tell you the details later." She responded, "Very well." On the following day, we returned to the royal hall, where Suma gathered all the officials of the palace to thank them for their efforts in the past period. He said to them, "Because of you, we were able to collect a great sum of money, and this allows us to begin our royal project." We then learn of Suma's dream, to build a new coastal city that would serve the entire kingdom, connected by roads that reach every corner of the realm, making it easier to transport food and resources across all cities. His goal was to provide food supplies at a low cost, supporting both the people and the kingdom. He added, "The current prices of food within the kingdom are exceedingly high. If we can ease transportation and convert cotton cultivation into food crops, then we will eradicate the food crisis completely." Later, back in the royal hall, Suma once more expressed his gratitude to his aides, granting them a continuous 5-day leave in recognition of their tremendous efforts. The officials were overjoyed. Afterwards, Suma rested a while in his office. On the next day, he took Licia and Aisha and traveled to the project's construction site. There, he was greeted by the captain of the royal guard, who saluted him and then led him to his tent to deliver grave news. He said, "There is a tribe dwelling near the construction site. They utterly refuse the continuation of this project under any circumstances. Their reasoning is that according to their legend, this land belongs to the lake beast, and any building upon it will summon a catastrophe that shall engulf the entire region." At that moment, Suma grew startled and said to the captain of the guard, "I want to meet one of these people immediately." The captain of the guard replied, "The place is not far. I will take you to their chief." "Indeed, my friend." They went to the chief of the tribe. Yet the man could not stand the captain of the guard at all, and said to him harshly, "Get out of my sight before I smash your eye with my fist." Here Suma intervened, saying, "Chief, we have not come to disturb you. All I want is to know the truth about this lake monster." The chief asked him disdainfully, "And who are you supposed to be?" Suma answered, "I am the new ruler of the kingdom." When the old man heard this, he was struck with shock. They then entered his home, and he began explaining to Suma, "I beg you, do not build anything there. Since ancient times, whoever built something in that area, the lake monster appeared and devoured the place along with everyone in it. Ever since, no one has dared to construct anything there." The elder was deeply moved as he spoke, with tears streaming down his eyes. Then he pulled out a map of the entire area. At that, Suma said, "Point out to me the location of this lake monster you speak of." Afterwards, Suma returned with the guards to the palace to discuss the matter with Akira. Akira said, "What nonsense is this? Do not tell me you believe the words of that old man." Suma replied, "There is no such thing as a lake monster. But since these are legends, surely the earlier generations wanted to convey a message to us, that we must never build houses in that particular place. Then Suma focused on the matter and said, perhaps this so-called lake monster is actually a tsunami, and since the tsunami zone is part of the construction site, the question now is, do we cancel the project or not? Then he decided, no, the project shall be built no matter what, but with a few adjustments. The site was good for constructing a seaport, but with the risk of tsunamis, it becomes extremely dangerous. Therefore, we will build the port elsewhere. He added with clarity, we know that a tsunami is preceded by an earthquake, and that will serve as our early warning. At that time, people must be evacuated from the coast and taken to higher ground. This will be part of the royal project plan. Akira then intervened, saying, then we must also build evacuation shelters, accessible at any time, in addition to ensuring clear routes leading to them. Thus, they began planning precisely what must be done in the royal project. Here we see that Licia had grown very fond of Suma. On the other hand, we move to one of the construction sites where new roads were being built. There we find Halbert. Do you remember him, my friend? He was working with extreme exhaustion, barely able to catch his breath, when suddenly Candy stood before him and said, why have you stopped working? He replied in annoyance. Why are you addressing me like this, Candy? She responded sternly, your day is cursed, call me Candy, nothing more. Here, you work under my command and obey my orders to the letter. In short, you are just a soldier under my authority. From this we learn that all those working at the site were soldiers from the special army assigned to protect the king. However, Suma had decided to employ them temporarily in road construction so that the work would not fall behind. During the break, Halbert and Candy sat together eating, when suddenly Suma appeared before them. Halbert grew flustered, stood immediately, and saluted. But Suma said to him, calm down, my friend. There is no need for such formalities. Call me by my name, for I consider you a companion. Then Suma went out to oversee the construction works, and he was delighted with the achievements, especially since he had taught them how to build roads with concrete materials, install lampposts along the routes, and even plant numerous trees that he had brought from the sacred forest. We then learn that these were the trees of protection, as they emit sound frequencies that frighten away monsters and prevent them from approaching. This, of course, was Aishia's idea. Soon after, a strange bird appeared, circling above them. Suma was puzzled, but we learn that this species of bird is used to send messages. It had come from the sacred forest, carrying a letter for Aishia. Once she opened it, she was shocked. It was from the chief of the Dark Elves, none other than Aishia's father. The letter told of a catastrophe that had struck the day before. A landslide and heavy rains had claimed the lives of many members of the tribe, with a large number still missing, and they did not know what to do. Aishia was deeply shaken and burst into tears. When Suma saw her, he immediately began thinking of how to respond to this calamity. He ordered Candy to gather everyone in the area at once, to prepare themselves for a journey to rescue the sacred forest. Then he reassured Aishia, do not worry, everything will be fine. But most importantly, control your emotions so that you may help us reach the forest. He added, we must arrive at the site of the disaster as quickly as possible. Candy rushed to gather the soldiers while Suma sent Licia to the royal palace to dispatch rescue teams from there, along with all kinds of weapons. She carried out the order immediately. Afterwards, Suma asked Aishia, how long will it take us to reach the forest? She replied, if we go by horseback, no more than half a day. But if we march like this, it will take at least 2 days. At this, Suma grew deeply worried and said, if we take 2 days, many will already have perished. We must find a quick solution. Yet he realized that there was only one horse available, the very one that pulled Suma's royal carriage. Suddenly, Suma speaks to Halbert saying, we must reach the sacred forest as quickly as possible. Tell me, does this world possess anything called transfer magic? Halbert replies, my friend, no such thing exists here. We are but humble folk. Suma becomes troubled, uncertain of what to do, but in that moment he notices the beasts carrying stones and building materials. He exclaims, God has granted us relief. He then orders the beasts to be used for transporting soldiers. And indeed, my friend, they reach the sacred forest that very same day. There, the Dark Elf chief comes forth to welcome Suma, thanking him for personally answering the call for aid. Yet Suma replies, I am grateful for your kind words, but right now there are people who must be saved. I have brought all the soldiers who were with me, while the rest of the rescue teams and relief units will arrive within the next 2 days. He then asks the chief to explain precisely what had happened. The chief tells him that a landslide had struck, accompanied by heavy rainfall in one of the forest regions, which resulted in many deaths and a great number of missing people whose fates are still unknown. Suma then requests the chief to write him a list of the missing, saying, we must search for them one by one. I want a group stationed at the mountain peak, and if they sense anything unusual, they must alert us immediately, for another landslide could occur while we search for the missing. At this moment, Aisha intervenes saying, I will take this responsibility myself, and I shall climb to observe the area from above. Suma then gathers the soldiers and explains the plan. Take care of yourselves, and if you feel any danger, evacuate at once. And indeed, the soldiers begin their search for the missing, and even Suma himself joins them in the effort. Suddenly, Suma hears a voice nearby. He rushes toward the source, calling out, "Halbert, come, dig with me quickly." And indeed, they uncover one of the missing and move him to safety. Afterwards, it is revealed that Suma had crafted a wooden mouse controlled by his magic, which he uses to search for missing people within tight spaces. By the end of the day, we learn that the rescue operations were successful, and every missing person from the accident was found. At that point, the Dark Elf Chief expresses deep gratitude to Suma, saying, "Had you not been here, my son, all of these people would now be counted among the dead. Thank you greatly." Suddenly, Aisha rushes over to inform Suma of the arrival of relief convoys and aid supplies. Suma is overjoyed by the news, and a sense of calm and reassurance spreads throughout. But on the other hand, Robert, the chief's brother, says, "Their presence now is pointless. They will not change reality." Suma responds, "Their presence will aid the wounded, and they will build homes for those who lost theirs. There are many things that must be done to ensure the safety of those who remain here." Yet Robert looks at him with deep sorrow and says, "Aid will never bring back the dead." It is then revealed that Robert's wife perished in the disaster, while his daughter lingers between life and death. Ever since the tragedy, he has been in a state of shock, overwhelmed by grief, weeping bitterly over his loss. After some time, the carriages begin withdrawing from the forest, having completed their rescue operations. Yet Suma appears greatly distressed, saying, "I have been distracted by the issues of food and internal wars, and I have neglected my role as king in preparing the kingdom for any danger. I must establish rescue and relief units across every corner of the realm. I shall not allow anyone else to perish during my reign." His heart is heavy with sorrow. Later, we see Juna visiting to check on him. She knocks upon his chamber door and enters, finding him working even while lying on his bed. She tells him, "I heard you have not slept in a long time." He replies, "Yes, my body is somewhat weary, but there are many matters I must finish first, and besides, sleep does not come to me at all." At that moment, Juna sits beside him and asks him to lie properly on the bed. She gently pats his shoulder, saying, "You must rest. And if you do not wish to show weakness before Lycia and the ministers, then I am here by your side, and I know well how exhausted you truly are." After that, Suma sinks into a deep slumber, while Juna remains beside him, softly singing. Meanwhile, we shift to the three military commanders, who are holding a secret meeting to plot a coup against the king. Here Excel, the commander of the navy, opposes the idea of rebellion, saying to Castor, "We are in no need of internal strife, for it will only expose the kingdom to foreign invasion." And just as the kingdom of Amadonia sent a message supporting the army's cause to overthrow the king, surely they have also sent a message of support to the king against us. Then Excel turns to Gaius and asks, "And what do you think of this turmoil?" He responds, "I have decided that this king is unfit to rule." Excel asks, "And on what grounds have you made this decision?" He replies, "He has dismissed senior officials who served the kingdom for decades, and moreover, he hails from another world and knows nothing of our history or customs." Excel then presses him, "Are you not doing this merely to seize the throne for yourself?" He answers, "No, I shall carry out a coup against this new king and depose him, then restore the throne to our former sovereign, so that matters may return to their natural state once again." On the other hand, we shift to the kingdom of Adonia, where the king was reading a letter he had received from Lys, in which Lys requested reinforcements to overthrow the new king. As always, the king did not hesitate for a moment and decided to seize the kingdom under the pretense of sending aid. At that moment, his son intervened, saying to him, "What a truly criminal mindset! You are a devil in the guise of a man, father." The king replied coldly, "Exactly." Meanwhile, we see Akra seated with Soma in his office, briefing him on the details of the ongoing events around them. The two were planning how to face the looming threat at the kingdom's gates. Yet, Soma could not help but think of the family he had built in this world, deeply anxious for their safety. It seemed that Soma was already resolved to overturn the flow of events entirely. We then returned to the kingdom of Amdonia, where the king gathered his forces and declared before them, "The moment the commander of the ground forces rises in rebellion against the king, we shall seize the kingdom from the south." Suddenly, one of those present interrupted him with a desperate plea, "Please, my lord, let us not enter another war. If we wage war now, our people will starve, and we will not be able to bear such a burden." But the king descended from his throne and struck him in the face with his foot, shouting, "Since the new king took the throne, their forces have grown stronger and their problems have begun to be solved one by one. Shall we stand idly by until they surpass us?" The man responded, "And what harm is there if the kingdom of Alfriden grows strong? In the end, we should all unite against the demon kingdom." The king, enraged, nearly killed him, but the prince intervened swiftly, drafting a decree to dismiss the minister from his position and banish him from the royal palace permanently. We then returned to Soma, who was speaking with Lycia, informing her that he had an appointment with the 3 army commanders. Indeed, they convened in a grand hall lined with magical stones. There, Soma addressed them. I know this is the first time we all gather together. I am Soma, the new king to whom the former king willingly abdicated the throne. At that moment, the commanders introduced themselves to their new sovereign. Suddenly, Soma spoke sternly. Enough of this. If you persist in disobeying my orders, I will consider you traitors to the kingdom, and the consequences will not be in your favor. Axel then asked the king about his true intentions toward the commanders. He replied, I hold no ill intent toward the commanders, but listen carefully. As things stand, our army is scattered, each unit under the sole command of its leader. This means that the king himself has no real authority over them. Therefore, I intend to unify the army under my direct command. The commanders will keep their positions, but the reins of power shall rest in my hands. His words did not sit well with Custer, the commander of the aerial forces, who protested strongly. Yet Soma pressed on, explaining the magnitude of the threats pressing against the kingdom's borders. Obey my commands and you will lose nothing, and if you ever find me failing in my duty, then do not merely depose me, execute me. The commanders were stunned by his words, especially Axel, who declared her support for the new king and endorsed his decision. Custer, however, refused to join and openly declared his defiance. He then turned to Lycia and asked about her father, the former king. She answered, My father abdicated the throne of his own free will. No one forced him. When I asked him why, he said that Soma was more fit to rule the kingdom than he. Even so, Custer retorted defiantly, even if that is true, I will never acknowledge you as king. And with that, he declared his rebellion and joined Lys in the coup. At that moment, Soma turned to Lys, commander of the ground forces, and said mockingly, Of course I won't bother asking whether you stand with me or against me. You are the very root of all our troubles. Nonetheless, they all agreed upon a clear rule. Should battle break out between them, if the commander is defeated, his soldiers must follow the king. And conversely, if the king is defeated, the opposite shall hold true. They also pledged that any confrontation would take place far from civilians and innocents. Here, Lycia stepped forward and called out to Lys. Suddenly, she cut her hair and cast it into the air, a solemn gesture declaring war upon him. The council ended on that note. Afterwards, Soma went to speak with Axel, weighed down with sorrow at his failure to persuade Custer and Lys to stand at his side. Suddenly, we discover that Jin is present with Axel, and it becomes clear that she is also his granddaughter, and we learn that Axel had joined Suma from the very moment he assumed the throne. Meanwhile, we turn to the ruler of the kingdom of Andoni, the son of Alsarma, who has gathered nearly 3,000 soldiers and resolved to invade the kingdom of Alfredin to seize its resources. He declares defiantly, By the time we reach the kingdom, the king and his general will have already destroyed each other, but do not think that Suma is oblivious. Suma, along with his companion, Sam, and Akra, is fully aware of what is happening, and surprisingly, they are not concerned at all, as if everything is under control. Then we move to another ruler named Gora, who stands at the borders of a city in the kingdom of Alfredin, with an army not exceeding 5,000 soldiers. The city's governor pleads with Gora not to attack, saying, I promise to surrender the city to you, but grant me a chance to persuade the soldiers to lay down their arms, for the majority of the people, more than 90%, wish to fight to their last breath. Gora replies angrily, I could erase you from the face of the earth, showing great irritation. However, his son intervenes, saying, We aim to reach the royal seat without losses. There is no need to sacrifice soldiers in a trivial battle like this. The city will fall into our hands regardless. Indeed, Gora turns to the city's governor and says, I guarantee the safety of the city's inhabitants if you surrender it willingly. The governor takes his words seriously and rushes back to the city, attempting to convince the populace to surrender. On the other side, we witness the great catastrophe. A massive force of Lys's soldiers attacks one of the kingdom's fortresses, igniting a devastating war in every sense of the word. The disparity in numbers is striking, with fire mages and archers controlling the fortress, bombarding it relentlessly, while the kingdom burns from within and a flood sweeps across it from the outside. What will Suma do amidst this chaos? Here, Albert emerges, channeling his fire magic into his spear and hurling it at the soldiers below, unleashing truly destructive power. Yet, as they say, numbers can overcome courage. Worse still, the enemy army brings with them 3 massive destructive cannons and begins bombarding the fortress walls, which are already starting to crumble. Kaidi and Haber find themselves in an extremely perilous situation. Suddenly, a figure moves with phenomenal speed among the projectiles, destroying them before they reach the fortress walls. falls. We discover he is a highly skilled hunter from the Dark Elf, who had joined the kingdom's soldiers after they rescued him in the forest. His skill is astonishing as he dismantles the projectiles effortlessly. Then the fortress gates open and a large number of the king's soldiers emerge, aiming to destroy the cannons and re-enter the fortress. And indeed they succeed, turning the tide of the battle completely. The soldiers then go to inform Lys of the events, reporting that all 3 cannons were destroyed in the blink of an eye. Lys erupts in anger and commands them, "This battle seems long. Withdraw now and reorganize your ranks." Meanwhile, we return to Gora, who appears furious because the city gates have not yet opened. He orders his son to prepare the soldiers for battle. Suddenly, the unexpected occurs. A terrifying sound rises from within the city, as if the soldiers are mobilizing and preparing to fight. The city governor then rushes toward Gora, apologizing profusely and seeking forgiveness for the delay. Gora responds sharply, "You promised me the city's surrender," the governor explains. "I was delayed because I was trying to persuade the soldiers inside, but the people preferred death over surrender." At that moment, Gora's fury ignites, and he draws his sword, ready to strike, who hands a bag of gold to King Gora, pleading, "Grant me until precisely noon tomorrow. If I do this, it will show the soldiers that you are a noble and wise king." The king is pleased with his words and agrees, saying, "Very well, you have until tomorrow, but after that, do not blame yourself." Next, we see the city governor sitting with Axel as they attempt to buy time, in accordance with the plan Soma devised to secure victory in the war. The following day, the soldiers of Lys continue their violent assault on the kingdom's fortress, while Candy and Hal Barrett strive to hold their ground as long as possible. We return to Gora, with noon having passed and the city still unopened. He exclaims in frustration, "This must happen," and commands his soldiers to prepare for battle, his patience evidently exhausted. At that moment, Albert appears, and the Dragon Knights arrive at the fortress. Astonishment rises, and he mutters to himself, "It seems this is the end. I shall die." We flash back to the past, where Castor sits in the Dragon Castle speaking with his assistant. "It seems Soma is a very just ruler, and we wronged him, but pride prevents me from reversing my decision to go to war." The servant replies, "The remaining Dragon Knights wish to join him." Castor refuses to allow more than 100 knights to join, and the rest leave the castle. He adds, "I have no objection to fighting alongside Lys, but I will not stand with the corrupt officials who joined him. I have only one choice, to fight honorably until my last breath." Then, Castor is informed of Soma's arrival at Dragon Castle and told that he brought a warship with him. They are shocked when giant monsters steer the ship toward the fortress. Castor notices that Soma has mounted a wheel on the ship to allow movement both on land and at sea. Suddenly, a communication from Soma reaches him through the stone tablets, stating, "Forgive me, my friend. I did not have enough soldiers and could not enter, so I had no choice but to use this ship." We then witness fireballs striking the Dragon Castle, causing Castor to laugh. "Soma, you are very clever. I am beginning to respect you, Your Majesty." When Soma offers him surrender and to join him, Castor replies, "Not to that extent. I value honor over surrendering the fortress so easily." Suddenly, the communication is cut, and flames begin consuming the castle. Castor gathers his soldiers and razes the city immediately. As they approach the ship, anti-ship cannons fire destructive projectiles, forcing them to evade. They then decide to fly at an extremely low altitude, allowing them to assault the ship's wheels. The Dragon Knights evade the arrows with ease, attack the ship, and destroy it completely, only to discover it is empty, containing something resembling a dummy. It appears that Sam had set a trap for them. Carly is shocked at her father's predicament, and the knights rush back to the castle. Inside Dragon Castle, Soma successfully breaches the fortress and stands face to face with Castor, who is astonished by his cleverness and unsure how to respond. Castor then says, "Soma, this is Pullman, my servant and an excellent commander of the aerial forces. If anything happens to me, I know you will understand." He then withdraws his men to confront him. Ashia intercepts Castor's attack with skill, finding him extremely strong, yet she strikes him against the wall. He attempts to attack again, but Boom and Lycia support her, using their magic to strike Castor and halt his assault. Suddenly, Ashia delivers a decisive strike to Castor, utterly shattering his strength, and he collapses to the ground, powerless and acknowledging his defeat. He then asks Lycia whether Soma is truly a just ruler, and the young woman replies that Soma is the finest who has ever ruled the kingdom, and that if her father were the one fighting Soma, she would have stood by his side. Next, we see Ashia presenting a strange collar to place on Castor, and it is revealed that this collar is meant for slaves and prisoners of war. The master of the collar dictates to whom it is worn, and should the slave contemplate contemplate harming his master, his fate is sealed instantly. Subsequently, Carly arrives at the castle, breaking through a window to enter. She is struck with shock upon seeing her father in such a state, longing for revenge, but Castor informs her that the matter has ended and the battle has been decided. The girl submits and Ashia places the collar of servitude upon her. Meanwhile, Castor communicates with Pullman, appointing him as the commander of the air forces, while rapidly gathering the knights before heading to Lys. We return to Albert, who is initially terrified at the sight of the dragon knights approaching the fortress, believing the end has come. Yet, he bursts into joy when he realizes that Soma has successfully seized control of the dragon castle. Soon after, Soma arrives at the fortress, greeting Albert and informing him that he has brought the aerial weapon as agreed. Albert responds that he has remained steadfast as planned, then jokingly remarks, "It wasn't even a day and a half that I left you with them." Shortly thereafter, Barrett begins scolding Soma, berating him for the events that unfolded. "Fool, idiot, they were bombarding us with cannons. You have no idea what we endured." Candy is startled by Albert's words, and Carly is astonished that he would insult the king, while Lycia explains to them that the king loves him and considers him a friend, or rather, part of their family, thus allowing him the freedom to speak as he pleases. Meanwhile in Ice, a meeting is underway with the high-ranking officials previously dismissed by Sam, who are now fearful for their lives, especially after Soma seized control of the aerial forces. At this moment, Lys realizes he has lost the battle and surrenders without resistance. One of the corrupt officials suggests using the populace as human shields to escape, which enrages Lys, who exclaims, "I knew you had no principles." Instantly, the officials don the collars of servitude, including Beret, and Lys compels his assistant to wear the collar as well. The fortress is then officially handed over to Soma. The soldiers report the sight of white banners atop Lys's castle, signaling his surrender, though they do not fully comprehend the events. Following this, Soma moves westward to the kingdom of Axel, having taken command of Lys's army and bringing Carly with him. He explains the events to her in detail. A flashback transports us to the past when Albert's father was at Soma's palace, revealing a critical secret. Lys had staged a rebellion to unite all traitors and corrupt officials in a single front, intending to ensnare them all. Soma understands that Lys resolved to fight him as the only means to gather criminals under his banner, and he realizes that Lys is paving the way for him to rule the kingdom. Consequently, Soma decides to follow this plan to the very end. On another front, we return to the colossal threat at the city's borders, determined to erase it entirely from the face of the earth. Suddenly, Axel is seen standing before the images of the city, and the king is struck with shock, thinking to himself, "What has brought her here? She was supposed to be fighting the king now alongside Lys and Castor." Abruptly, Axel casts her magic, conjuring a massive mirror of water through which Soma appears directly before Gorin, and this broadcast spreads to every corner of the kingdom. At that moment, Soma declares, "I have seized control of the army and the air forces after defeating the fortress, and now all military forces are under my command. As for the internal conflicts, they have ended, but there is an important matter to address. The people must know that the kingdom of Adania exploited the instability within our realm and assembled an army under the command of the dog, Gorin, who now seeks to seize our lands and our kingdom. For this reason, I declare war upon them. As for the dog standing outside, I shall teach him decorum. I am certain, Gore, that you are watching this broadcast. In any case, I have dispatched an army to invade your kingdom, and I shall erase the history of your realm from every book. From this day onward, it shall leave no trace. You are the one who began this war, and the initiator shall face the darkest reckoning." At that moment, Gorin is gripped by terror, and his soldiers rush to retreat to the kingdom immediately. Elsewhere, in the kingdom of Andoni, the Minister of Finance rushes toward Gorin's daughter, bearing grim news. He informs her that Gorin and his soldiers fell into an ambush on their return. The girl responds, "Oh, then my reckless father must have been returning to the kingdom through the Golden Valley. We presume that this valley is the path of the kingdom's return." Thus, Gorin seeks to come back through it. At that instant, artillery rains down in a storm of shells, falling like hellfire, and the scent of death permeates everywhere. More than half of Gorin's soldiers perish at the hands of Jin, who leads this operation, with the attacking forces numbering over 15,000 soldiers, leaving casualties alarmingly high and grim prospects for their survival. Meanwhile, Gorin manages to escape the brink of annihilation with the remainder of his troops and arrives at the borders of Van, the kingdom's capital, rejoicing that it has not yet fallen into Soma's hands. Yet, they are confronted by Soma, who has established a camp mid-route, fortified with countless soldiers. Observing the events closely, upon learning of their arrival, he signals the commander of the guard to launch a direct assault, initiating the final battle. The clash is devastating, with intense combat erupting between the forces. Candy wields her magic with precision, while Halbert employs fire sorcery, effortlessly eliminating enemy soldiers. The stark disparity in strength between Soma's forces and Goran's becomes unmistakably clear. We return to Soma, seated contemplatively as the battle unfolds. Carly asks him, "Why are you here? You should be in a secure location far from the battlefield." He replies, "The lives of my soldiers are not more precious than my own, and if we fail in this war, I must pay the price alongside them." Carly, stunned, responds, "Aren't you afraid of death?" He answers, "I am afraid, yet I also fear for the life of the family I have built, and for the life of every soldier under my command." Meanwhile, from a high vantage point, Goran observes the battle's progression and speaks to his son. "The battle is turning against us. Withdraw the soldiers and flee this place immediately." Suddenly, the son was struck with shock and exclaimed, "I will not leave you alone." Yet the father replied, "This is my fault. Our soldiers were exhausted from what happened in Golden Valley, and still I sent them into a second battle. As your king, I command you to withdraw immediately." The son responded, "But you must withdraw with me. I will not abandon you." At that moment, Goran realized that Soma would not allow him to retreat with his troops, unaware that escape was impossible. Seizing the moment, the son mustered his courage and fled, while Goran attacked Soma's camp in a desperate attempt to eliminate him. News then reached Soma that Goran was advancing toward the camp with 500 soldiers, and he understood that this was the decisive moment. He signaled Carly to go immediately to Lys and remain by his side, assuring her that if he fell in this battle, he had relinquished the throne to her. He spoke this from a distant location, far from his army, where few soldiers were available for his protection. Carly replied, "It is impossible for me to leave you. It is not in my honor to abandon the ruler of the kingdom and flee. I will not leave you, even if it costs me my life." Gathering her strength, she charged toward Goran to confront him. On the brink of falling, Soma's doll intervened in the battle to protect her. Goran, furious, shouted at Soma, "I will flog you," and rushed to attack, but the doll restrained him. Soma then commanded Carly, "Detonate the doll." She obeyed, and a devastating explosion ensued, finally extinguishing Goran's life. Soma ran to check on Carly, only to see that Goran had not yet died and was still attempting to strike, but he was overwhelmed by a torrent of magical blows. At that instant, the king collapsed and died, thus bringing the war to its ultimate conclusion. Soma had seized the city of Van, the capital of the kingdom of Adonia. When the news reached Goran's daughter, she was stricken with grief over her father's death and lamented, "He lived greedy and died foolish." She then left the place and walked away. Thereafter, Soma sat to receive reports on the latest events and announced that he would seek to control no other place in the kingdom except the capital, and that he would engage in no further wars from this day forward. Lys said to him, "This is our opportunity to seize all the lands of the kingdom. Why not do it?" Soma replied with solemnity, "The kingdom of Adonia is part of the joint alliance against the kingdom of the demon, an alliance that includes the empire of Giran. If war breaks out, they will intervene, and we might have to leave Adonia and return to our own kingdom later, but not now. We must first negotiate with them properly, and even if Adonia instigated the war, it remains part of the alliance, whereas we are not yet a member." Indeed, we move to the empire of Giran, where we learn that the ruler is Princess Maria, a very kind princess who does not discriminate between individuals, and the entire populace loves and respects her. Soon, we find the princess's sister, Sira, addressing her and informing her that she has prepared a very large army, intending to take a portion of it to the kingdom of Adonia to resolve the conflict that occurred there. Princess Maria replied to her sister, "Keep in mind that the kingdom of Adonia was the one that initiated the war. Nevertheless, try to negotiate with the new king and take care to protect yourself." We see that Sira is exceptionally courteous in her demeanor. Meanwhile, in the kingdom of Adonia, the people are shown to be joyful and untroubled by the prior occupation, living their lives freely and safely. Suddenly, Goran's daughter appears and tells the Minister of Finance that the populace is pleased because her father has returned, restoring the freedoms that were taken from them. It appears that her father, Goran, had once ruled over the people strictly but allowed them a measure of freedom, which could potentially incline the people against the Empire of Giran should they wish to restore her brother to power. Elsewhere, Akra conveys an extremely important report to Soma, stating that 50,000 soldiers from the Empire of Giran have begun moving toward Adonia, aware that they will soon arrive. At the same time, another part of the Imperial Army reaches the kingdom early to report on the advancing forces. Soma replies, "Inform me immediately of any new developments." Later, Soma, in disguise, strolls with Jin for leisure, while we notice he has stationed guards at a distance to ensure his protection. Soma enters a shop to purchase numerous items for Tommy, whom he considers his little sister, acquiring many clothes that bring her great joy. Upon leaving, he calls out to her, "I have bought you these shoes. I hope they please you." The girl runs to him delightedly. At that moment, Soma gives her a hairpin as a gift, which she receives with happiness, reminding him, "Do not forget Lysia's gift." He responds, "Do not worry, I have brought gifts for them both." They continue their recreational day while Sam brings them food and they sit in a quiet spot. However, this tranquility is short-lived as Sira arrives to see Soma. She begins lecturing Tommy at her side and Jin is about to attack her, but pauses once Sira clarifies that she is not here to fight but to convey a message from her sister, Princess Maria, ruler of the Empire of Jiran. She tells him, I have come to personally verify the rumors surrounding your actions, that you have plundered the kingdom of Adonia and driven it to the brink of bankruptcy, that you feed the people unfit food, and that you imprison and torture the daughters of the kingdom. Soma is taken aback, responding, neither I nor the Antichrist have done any of that. Sira observes Jin speaking to Soma freely, calling him by name, and realizes that his closeness to his soldiers demonstrates the kingdom's stability and that he is a man of good character. Sira begins to know him better and says, I will leave you for now until we convene and seek a solution that satisfies all parties. When Sira learns that Soma comes from another world, she immediately greets him, especially after discovering that the Alfredan kingdom summoned him, as they lacked any form of aid. Yet Soma has brought the kingdom to full prosperity after the old king abdicated. She then decides to schedule a meeting with him to reach a resolution that pleases all sides. Afterwards, Soma returns to the palace. Tommy is delighted with her new clothes and shows them to Lysia. Soma also presents Lysia with a beautiful necklace, saying, I cannot forget you, my friend. The girl is overjoyed. In that moment, Soma makes an eternal promise to himself. Everything I do henceforth will be to protect Lysia and ensure her everlasting happiness. I will safeguard my family and prevent any harm from reaching them. I await the day I will eradicate corruption completely and allow the people to live in eternal peace. Thus concludes the first season of the Soma anime. Leave me a comment and don't forget to like to support us in continuing. Subscribe to the channel to receive all new updates and activate the notification bell so that you're the first to watch each new episode. See you in the upcoming videos.